Financially free with Cleo.
Hey, this is Cleo with CleoYogaFinance.com, and welcome back for another episode with Financially Free with Cleo, a show where we shift mindsets with real and raw money conversations with everyday people, empowering you to take action, appreciate the journey, and live the lifestyle you desire financially, mentally, and physically. Today, we have a very special guest, Rob Boyd. He is a former financial advisor and real estate economist turned financial education specialist, media entrepreneur, and speaker. As a native of Durham, North Carolina, known for its Black Wall Street, he's overcome challenges that plague many underserved communities. At Howard University, Rob discovered his natural understanding of financial and business concepts, and he pursued a master's in real estate from Georgetown University to elevate his career in finance, real estate, and economics. Rob made the decision to leave corporate America and become an entrepreneur. And during that transition, he made a pit stop in federal banking to help educate regional and national banks on how to better serve low to moderate income communities. So now, as a financial educator and business consultant, he uses his stories and expertise to equip youth and adults with skills in personal finance and entrepreneurship. Welcome to the show, Rob. I'm so excited for you to be here.
I'm excited to be here too. I'm sure we'll get into it, but there's so many reasons why this is going to be a wonderful conversation today.
Yes, I totally agree. And those out there listening, they know I love to go way back to your childhood. Okay. So if you could just start with sharing with us how you grew up and how you first learned about money.
I grew up in a single parent household, and that's, I think, tremendously important to my story as far as growing up with my mom and later down the road, my younger brother. And we weren't really on the best side of town growing up, and we kind of moved around a lot when I was younger, and I like changed schools a couple times and changed districts and things of that nature. So my upbringing was pretty interesting in relation to just life at home. And I mean, me and my mother had a great relationship, and we were always like two peas in a pod. But outside the home, life is a little bit different. And in our neighborhoods and in our communities, there's a lot of crazy things going on that you kind of have to live with and live through. And I think those experiences, especially in Durham, North Carolina, which is an historically Black city, and has a lot of history as far as Black Wall Street and other monikers that have labeled the city in the past. It was just a very interesting upbringing, but I came into contact through my mother. Came into contact with money through my mother, because while I was growing up, she was working in a bank, and she went from bank teller to bank manager, and this is kind of throughout my elementary age and kind of midway through middle school. And while I was in elementary school, at times where she couldn't afford to send me to summer camp or put me into some camp because I was in a year-round school, that it was like 9 weeks on and then it's like 2 weeks off. It's like an intermission. And during those intermissions and like in summers were shorter for year-round kids, but in those settings, I was taken to work with her, and I would be in the break room, and she would give me pennies and nickels to count all day long, and that was my introduction to money. And I didn't think of it at that point like, oh, like nobody else is sitting at home counting nickels and pennies all day. I didn't think of it like that. That was my experience. But then later, after I going to college and like looking back, it's like, why did I even choose economics? Like, why did I even like, and it was something that was kind of innately in me that I just had an interest for money. And it started with those points when I was younger, when I was literally like just counting coins. It wasn't dollars, but I was counting coins all day. And I'm sure that my imagination was running wild at that younger age. And as life went on and you kind of face outside, if you will, you kind of suppress or repress some of that imagination. And but it was able to kind of come back out when it came time to go to college and choose a different life path. And it's like, okay, where do I go from here? Going to a completely different state or a completely different place away from home. It's kind of like a refresh. And the only thing I had or could think of to grab onto was, oh man, that experience, if you will, from younger at a younger age around money and counting money. Like, let me see if I'm good at some of these money classes. And here we are today, because it all just carried throughout the rest of my life.
Yeah, that's so cool about the counting coins as a young kid. I didn't get introduced to counting money at that early age, but I think it's really cool because you just be surprised how much kids pick up on.
Right.
And then even like later, like in teen years or our adult years, like you said, you start to think about stuff you learned as a kid and how, you know what, this is actually useful, just basic money skills, learning how to count coins. So that's super cool. And even with your mom, you know, working at a bank already. So I'm sure she was able to introduce you to things about the banking world that some of us may not get to. Or did you ever talk about any of that like at home?
It was interesting. So to kind of even go into more detail, and I think this is actually very important, that my mom worked at a Black-owned bank. And this was a part of the Durham's history. So for those who don't know, Durham is known for one of the oldest Black-owned insurance companies, as well as Black-owned banks. And back in the early 1900s, it was all types of Black-owned businesses on this street in Durham called Parish Street. It's kind of like what Greenwood Street is in Tulsa is what Parish Street is in Durham. And so throughout time, that insurance company, the North Carolina Mutual Insurance Company, then kind of had a spinoff and created North Carolina Mutual Community Savings Bank. And that's the bank that my mom worked at, which is kind of like just kind of the history being passed down. And in the moment, I had no idea of any of this history, right? And my mom, I can't say that she really was receptive to all of it because she never told me about it. You know, like we never talked about it, right? She just told me that it was a Black-owned bank, but that was pretty much the extent of the conversation. And so I think at that point in time, I didn't realize that wasn't normal. Like, I didn't know that wasn't normal. I never been to other places to know, like, okay, first of all, a Black-owned bank is not something you see every day. And then also that it came from historical beginnings or origins back to over 100 years ago. And so I didn't really know in the moment, and I didn't really learn much about banking in the moment, but it was a familiarity that was really, I think, the foundational core of like, okay, let me learn something about money and the world, because I do have some childhood recollection of what a job in that industry actually looks like. Like, I was like, I know what being a bank teller is. And even though I'm in college and I know there's so many other opportunities, like that was something I could kind of say, all right, I know something a little bit about that. Let me study that as a major. And if I don't like it, I'll change it. But that's something I can kind of run with. Yeah.
That's so cool, because I'm glad you gave us that history about it, because a lot of us aren't aware of that at all. And I know I'm from Nashville, Tennessee, and I didn't really understand about Black-owned banks. You know, there was one Black-owned bank, and I'm not sure if it's still, you know, open, but it was either Citizens Bank. I think that was the name of it. And it was on a historic street in Nashville, Tennessee, on Jefferson Street. I didn't know anyone that worked there, but I just heard Black-owned, but didn't really know the significance of it. So the fact that you said your mother worked at a Black-owned bank as a kid, we didn't really grasp the concept of how huge that is at that time, and even today.
Right. And when I look back at it, I remember this one guy. His name was Mr. Lewis, and Mr. Lewis was an older Black gentleman who worked at the bank, right? And he really, I won't say, kind of looked out for my mom, but he was like the wisest guy at the bank, right? And yeah, I would say there was probably at any point in time maybe 4 or 5 employees at the bank, right? So it was very like a small branch. It wasn't like a huge bank branch. And when I was younger, I mean, he was already in his late 70s and he was still working. He hadn't retired, right? And he was like one of those individuals who just stuck around, not necessarily because he had to, because you always knew Mr. Lewis had money. You don't know where it was, but you just knew he had some money, right?
Yeah.
But he just stuck around and kept working because he just said he just is too bored at home. And I remember, like, thinking back, I remember things that he used to say to me and tell me. As I got older and I really had to sit down and like think back about just certain things in childhood. And when I had to do that as a adult, I could think back to like the things he used to say to me. He's like, yeah, like this is a special place, and like your mom is the manager, and you should really be proud of it. Like he used to tell me these things, and I would just like, I'm like, okay, it's my mom, whatever. Like I really didn't, I didn't know what he was trying to convey to me. And now looking back at and remembering some of the phrases and things he used to say or share with me when I was at work in the break room counting all those coins, and it's like, wow, like he was trying to tell me when I was 8, 9, 10 years old, and that this was something that was special and should be cherished as just a place and a place of business and things of that nature. And knowing he's passed on years ago, and just knowing for myself right now that I had an experience in my life as a consultant to consult regional and large banks and be a consultant. And just to think back in my life that there at one point I was just a little kid that was at work with my mom who worked at a bank, and I just didn't think anything of it to now that I consult banks like this. Like it made me take myself serious when I had that realization. Like, hold on, like this isn't just the average Joe Blow story. Like you have an opportunity to, however you can carry the torch in some way of as far as like Black people in the financial space. Like that's just kind of, I know it sounds broad, but that's kind of the flag that I carry. It's like I think Black people can be successful in the financial space. That's just the bare bones to it. And how could I continue to carry that on in my lifetime, being that I've kind of decided to pick that torch up out of all the torches? And that's just really what gets me up every day. But it's these like stories that I think back at. It's like, man, like the reason I'm doing what I do today is that my mom was in a tough financial situation, which required her to take me to work with her. And that position, even though it wasn't enjoyable in the moment, has created the space for all the opportunities I live within today. And you kind of find ways to be grateful and have some gratitude for those struggle days, because you just never think about the positive ways that those moments can kind of form you for the future. And that's what I always think about when I think about like how I ended up here today. And it's not random. Like I used to think, oh, I just kind of randomly fell into the finance. Like, nah. And I had to, because when you can say I just fell in here, you can kind of move without expectation and without intent. But to know that this I'm 32 years old, and to know that the reason I'm here today has been like a 24-year journey to get to this point. If you think about it like that, it's like this isn't by chance. So So that's how I kind of look at it in my own mind, and kind of give myself flowers while I can.
Yeah.
And to say, Rob, like you really stuck through and committed to something that you were shown at a younger age that you didn't even notice at that point. And that's been a way, kind of on a different topic, that I've kind of learned how to like like take a step in the area of self-care and self-love and just appreciating yourself, which is something I've been personally been looking to get better at recently in my life. And it's just like looking at those things and say, like, yeah, I did that. Like, I didn't get lucky. Like, I worked for that.
Yeah, I think it's important for us to reflect back on stuff from our childhood. Just like you mentioned, your mom was in a position where she had to take you to work. And
Right.
yes, as a kid, you may not understand, you probably had days where you were probably bored or probably wish you were somewhere else.
Yes.
But it's like you think about situations like that and look at you now. That's why I feel like we should reflect back on certain struggles or experiences, because you just never know. It's like a piece of the puzzle, a piece of your story that's
Mm-hmm.
like leading to something even more powerful. And even with the conversations with the man that worked at the bank and that was trying to educate you on how, how significant this Black owned bank is and that your mom works here. So I'm sure later on, once you start to realize, like, that was a big deal.
Right.
I
Right.
may have been there as a kid and not really understanding, but I think that goes back to, talking with kids. It's really important for us to talk to kids, just like that man talked to you. And how you're talking to other kids nowadays as well. They're going to remember that years later. It may not make sense at the moment, but 5, 10, 20 years later, they're going to be able to realize that, hey, this actually was a piece that helped me in my life. And I'm sure, I know you said you're getting better at being, grateful for certain things, giving yourself flowers, which is very, very important to do, especially the higher levels that we get to and the more opportunities and more experience that we get. We definitely have to acknowledge that. I think
Right.
sometimes we can underestimate ourselves, but like when you said 24 years, we have to think about everything from before we even graduated high school until now.
Yes.
Like everything
Yes.
is skills and experiences and opportunities that has contributed to what we're doing today. So I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I think we all can do better at giving ourselves flowers, but also giving other people flowers that we feel add value into our lives as well. So I think that's really, really important. So as you reflect back to everything that you've experienced, and even going back to present day, like, what do you feel is one of your best money decisions? Just thinking
Mm,
about everything that you've experienced, which I'm sure you've had a lot, but
yeah.
what do you feel is one of your best money decisions?
One of my best money decisions. Wow. Oh man, this is a good one, Cleo. I would say it's because I want to go two different directions, and so
Let's go
in
there.
a positive way, I think
Mhm.
one of my best decisions ever was probably one of my riskiest decisions ever. And that just turned out in a good way. I had a friend of mine that I'm still cool and great with today, so this is no indictment of her. But I had a friend of mine call me out of the blue. This is while I was living in DC, and at that point, I was at the tail end of kind of leaving corporate America. And this is probably like 24, 25 years old, somewhere around in this range.
Mhm.
Um, and she calls me and says, "Hey, Rob," like, and she's a real estate agent at the moment. Just context. She
Mhm.
calls me and says, "Hey, Rob, I got this. I found this deal. Do you want to do it?" And I'm like, you can't just ask me a question. I know you know that I'm willing to invest, but you just can't just ask me just such a generic question like that, because you're trying to get me on the hook before you tell me the rest of the story, right?
Mhm.
So, and I'm like, I mean, I consider stuff, like I consider whatever. She's like, well, no, it's like this is like a now or never deal. Like, we got to do this quick. Like, we need to close in like 4 days. And I'm like, what? Whoa, time out. What is going on? Like, I'm not just about to, like, I trust you and I trust your judgment professionally, but I also would have to just know some details before I just give you a flat out, yes, let's do it. Like, so she basically had found a real estate deal in which there was a distressed seller. This was a commercial real estate property here in Atlanta on Metropolitan Parkway, which is at the moment kind of a rough area in relation to just a lot of dilapidated buildings, near a lot of just things that just need to be redeveloped. But in history, just a prolific area of the city. And I'm like, what the heck is on Metropolitan? That's what I'm thinking. What the heck is on Metropolitan Parkway? Because even though I lived in DC, my father lives here in Atlanta, so I was always traveling to Atlanta throughout my life just to visit him. So I knew some areas, and she says it's this commercial property. It's abandoned right now. Distressed seller. He's going through a divorce. He needs cash quickly, and he's just looking to liquidate all of his assets to do what he needs to do. And he just doesn't have anything to do with this property. It's not producing any income for him at the moment. Like, he just want to get rid of it. I said, okay. So I was like, all right, that story is starting to come together. I see where we're going here, right? But then immediately I'm like, okay, well, what's the number, right? Like, what are we talking about here?
Yeah.
So I'll say that the total property itself was less than $50,000. Right. He was willing to take little less than $50,000 for the property. Now, this is right outside of downtown, near Spelman College, on Metropolitan Parkway. And so you just don't come across anything. Sometimes you don't even come across an empty residential lot for that amount. Let alone a commercial lot that's already commercially zoned, that's just good to just ready to rock and roll in a way. And it was a couple of us that were part of the deal. It was probably a total of like 6 of us. And we all kind of split the total. And that day, so this is the same day she's calling me, right? So she called me in the morning. Same day, I go to the bank, and I wire her the money. This is how much I trusted her. I wired her the money.
Wow.
Because we needed to close in 4 days because he was going to like his divorce meeting or something on the 5th day or something was going on. So I agreed. I said yes. We didn't have a plan. We didn't have an exit strategy. We didn't have none of that planned out. And we just saw an opportunity to acquire property and jumped on it. And the time kind of cycled for a while. It just sat there. And then there was a point where we were getting income from the property from it being rented out as a parking lot because, again, the building was boarded up, abandoned, but there was a restaurant next door that needed extra parking. So it was kind of making some money in that way in the interim. And then ultimately, it finally became what it is today, which is now a Black-owned pizza shop that is at that location on that property. The older building has been torn down. And we went from just grabbing a piece of land just because we knew it was a great opportunity. And she came across it in her everyday work as a real estate agent in the commercial space. And then it led to us then having an opportunity to then connect the dot for someone to come redevelop the property and kind of take that onus and us kind of like just watch that happen, and you're not a part of every deal on the top level. So another entity came in, developed it, built a retail property, and now there's a Black-owned pizza parlor called Slim and Husky's.
Nashville.
Right on the property, and that was probably one of the best because I just having the experience and being on that side of the table and just being able to see all the pieces to the puzzle, and then see that happen. I think just the manifestation of that was such a boost to my mentality just to see that like play out. And I think that was probably, I mean, the return on the investment wasn't out of this world. And it wasn't like a astronomically great financial deal. It was the experience that was valuable. And just being right place, right time, and trusting your intuition, trusting your gut, and then having a strong network, having that individual as my friend that called me. And it's just so many things that had to line up for that to work. So I think that's one of my better decisions, even though it wasn't the most lucrative financially.
Yeah.
Still being a part of that. And then on the flip side, though, the other one to answer that question, even quicker, was actually a bad financial decision, which was to get into the game of credit cards, right?
Yeah.
And thinking that early on, it's like, oh, I know I'm going to have to pay this back one day, but I'm going to do what I need to do so that I'm spending this money in a way that is going to create more income, right? And I knew that was possible, but I really wasn't serious about that.
Yeah.
Like I should have been, and thinking, oh, I can start a business on a credit card, which is not the greatest idea, y'all. At least from my experience. And as far as just depending on the credit card for certain expenses, and there should never be a dependency. And so that was one of the decisions that I learned a lot from. That ended up being, even though it was a mistake, it ended up being a ROI positive decision, because I just learned so much about credit, managing credit cards, how to pay them off. I learned everything from that whole ordeal, and now have a much better relationship with credit now in my life, to a point where I also focused on doing other things so I don't need credit. And I think that bad experience just made me want to go discover all the ways to operate without it. And I just learned how to do that and that's actually a more formidable way to go about life. Of course, there's always instances where there's financing and deals, but I'm talking about consumer debt. And just like, oh, like, no, that I don't have to have a credit card. That's not, everybody doesn't have to have one and don't have to depend on one. And that's what I learned from the decision to say, oh, here's a credit card. I got a great credit score. I can increase my limit. Oh, this is enough money to kind of start some businesses and do some wild investments, some wild aggressive investments that really didn't have any thought behind them.
Right. I'm glad you shared those two, because like with the real estate deal that you did, when you said you got the phone call, I think it's like you mentioned your network and people that you know. It's very important to have like quality, valuable, genuine people that you are connected with personally and professionally that can call you up about a deal. But like you said, you was wanting some details first, before you gave that like official yes. Because how many times have people reached out to us to share a deal? And, depending on who it is, you may have this high level of confidence, like, okay, this is probably going to be a good opportunity. And then depending on who it is, you may be kind of like, I'm not really sure. But you always want to make sure that you're making the best decision for you. And like you said, it may not have made you this huge amount of money, but the experience, I feel like experiences can be priceless too. Like I'm sure everything that you learned in that real estate deal, you could probably apply or have applied to other opportunities that you've been able to experience when it comes to real estate. And shout out to Slim and Huskies. I know the first one was in Nashville, Tennessee.
Right.
So I love and support Slim and Huskies. They have great business, great food, great service, great everything. So I'm really excited about all of the expansions that they have going on there. But I think when it comes to real estate deals, a lot of people do want people that they can trust. And I think that just starts with like genuinely building like relationships with people. That way, when opportunities come, and just like when you made that decision, like you didn't really have a whole lot of time to make a move.
Wasn't.
And I feel like that's confirmation that every time you make a money decision, you may not have all the answers or have everything like this perfect plan in place either. You just have to take the risk. I mean, investing is risky, right? So you just have to make the best decision based on the information you have at the time. Right. And we always hope that you get a good return on the investment. But I think that's really important to think about, is that you never know where the opportunities may be. I'm sure you probably didn't think that how that deal played out and the specific property that you got. I'm sure you probably didn't think you would be investing in that property at that time either.
No. I mean, I knew where the location was, and when she described it to me, I was like, "Oh, I know where that is, and I know what she's talking about." And it was one of those things where it's like, "Oh, well, I now own this property or a piece of this property with all of our partners who are friends or colleagues of each other in some way." So it was just a great opportunity. And I think also backstory to this, because I think this is going to be helpful context wise, because everything doesn't happen perfectly. So let me give you the backstory as to where that money came from and how this all even came about. So at this point in time, where she called me, this was right when I had really started to invest in the stock market as well, and learn the stock market and just understand from a personal perspective. Now, I studied the markets backwards and forwards, up and down in college and early in my career as an economist. But it's a completely different story to actually be investing as an individual and buying stocks and companies. It's just a whole nother game you have to learn. And I was learning that part of the financial world at that point in time, or getting better at it. And so there was the first semester that I went back to Georgetown. The very first semester I had done FAFSA to get a loan for the first semester of getting my master's degree in real estate finance. And I got the degree. Not to get the degree. I got the initial semester loan, which was, I think I needed roughly about, I think it was like $5,500 or something of that nature, somewhere around in there. And so I had done the FAFSA. I got that, and I had paid for the first semester. And then I had roughly, at that point in time, after that, in my savings at that point in my life, I had like $5,000 in savings. Right? Like, this is like my savings account. Like, this is my foundation, y'all, right? Like, not my 401k, nothing. Like, this is my liquid cash, right? I have $5,000 in the savings account. And I was like, all right, it's my first semester. I need a new computer. I can't use the same computer I was using in undergrad. It's slow. It was a Dell. I was like, I want a MacBook. Like, I got to get an upgrade, right? So I took $1,500 out, and because I was going to get a MacBook, right? And then I'm like, when I say took it out, I put it in my checking account, because I was literally about to go buy a MacBook, right? And this was in the same kind of like week or so that she called me. And she calls me, and when she says, "Hey Rob, like," I was like, "How much am I going to have to put in the deal?" And she was like, $5,000, right? So I'm like, oh snap, like, because if I do this, I can't get my MacBook, and also I'm really low on savings, because I knew in my mind I had a couple more paychecks come in, because I was in my last couple months at the job. So I was like, I could use the next couple paychecks. I can eat some ramen noodles. I can get my savings built back up real quick. Like, I was strategizing, right? and so I did it, right? And I will not advise this to anybody. But I knew for myself, like the reason I felt comfortable with doing that is because I had an innate dependency on credit cards at that point. So I knew if I had any expenses that came out of the blue, I had just sent my savings away to invest in something. And at that point, I was really saving at a fast pace, though. Like, so just to let people know, because I don't want anybody to think I can do that too. I was saving about $1,100 per pay period because I was super great at managing my money. So every time I got paid, I could save $1,100. And I knew I was a couple weeks away from turning in my 2 weeks notice. So my thinking at that point in time, I was like 2 months away from quitting. And I thought to myself, okay, that's 4 paychecks. So that's 4,400. In the next 2 months, I can save 4,400. So in the next 2 months, I can kind of replace this 5,000. And if anything kind of comes up out the blue, I got a credit card and I'm gonna navigate this because I don't want to miss this lifetime opportunity or opportunity of a lifetime to get into this deal that I think is a good deal. Because at this point, I was really interested in real estate because I'm going back to Georgetown to get a master's in real estate finance. I was like, oh, I gotta do this. This is not optional. Like this is God saying you on the right path. Like there was no way I was saying no. So I just had to accept the financial space that I was going to put me in temporarily and kind of feel comfortable with it. And I did it. And I tell you, I didn't go out those 2 months. I wasn't at nobody's happy hour. I was like, no, I can't. I don't feel comfortable right now spending money that I know I at the moment I don't really have. And I'm not even playing myself like that. So I would go to work, go home, go to work, go to home, and did that for like 2 months. I ended up replenishing my savings in 2 months back to where it was. Then at that point, I had to make a payment because between that time, I had charged that MacBook to a credit card because I was like, I gotta have a computer. I can't wait 2 months to get the computer. Let me just go get the computer. I swiped it. So I had to, there were so many things behind the scenes that I had to take some even bigger risk, not with just the investment itself, but where I personally was with my finances aside of making the investment for that time period. And the thing that I look back at that and because it all worked out well, but when I look back at that, it's also a lesson that sometimes you just got to take risk. And risk doesn't mean failure. And I think a lot of us in today's world, we automatically equate risk with failure instead of risk being just a part of the process to success.
Yes, that is so true. I'm glad you said that. You guys that are listening out there, it's really important because I talk about the risk taking, and I'm glad you specified risk not being failure. It's a part of the journey. Like all these different experiences and opportunities are adding up to future successes and future opportunities. And sometimes, just like how you broke it down, all the things that went on behind the scenes, it happens like that a lot of times where it's no, just like when we see that meme where it has like, your plan and it's like a straight line. And then the real plan is like all these circles and stuff. It always happens that way. Yes, it would be great if it was just this perfect straight line, but it's not. But I feel like that's the beauty of it. Like, I feel like we're made stronger. We get more experience, educate. I feel like we're built better mentally when we get to experience all of these different things. So just for you to be able to reflect back on all those things that went behind the scenes, like you're right, you need that MacBook. I also had a Dell computer. And when you said Dell, I was like, oh my gosh, because I had a raggedy, like when I bought it, it was already refurbished. When I bought it, it was already used. And I had it for 10 years. I didn't upgrade until this was 2018, I think February. So it's really kind of new when I switched over to MacBook because I started writing. I was writing personal finance articles, and I was like, this is just too slow. Like some of my keys was missing on the keyboard. It was
Yeah.
running slow. And I was like, this
I
is
was missing
just,
I was missing a key on my deal. I definitely was missing a key. I remember that.
I was like, this is not going to work. And I said, if I'm trying to elevate and turn things around real quick, I got to get a new laptop. And I got a MacBook because I already had an iPhone. And
Right.
once I got it, I was like, I cannot believe I struggled for the last 10 years with this debt. Like, back then it served its purpose. But when you're trying to do so many different things personally and professionally, like you need a laptop that's going to handle a lot of information
Right.
and not be slow. So I had a Dell too. And it's just crazy how little things like that we remember, that's just a part of the journey, and you say you put it on a credit card.
Yeah.
And that's what you had to do at the time, So it's things like that. I think it's good to reflect on the great things, but things that we probably felt like, oh, I wish I hadn't done that. But you still learn from it. Still something to be grateful for. At least you did have the credit card to use at the time.
Exactly.
To put the MacBook on there. So just like when you it challenged us to think differently about debt that we've had in the past or debt that we have now, it is important to think about the positives behind it. So I think that's really great. And that goes into talking about the financial freedom, having the tools and resources that you need. So when it comes to financial freedom or being financially free, I would love to know, what does that really mean to you?
Yeah. Ooh. Well, let me make sure I answer this question correctly. What is financial freedom to me, or what do I think generally when I think about what I want to help people achieve?
Great question. This one is for you. What does financially freedom and being financially free mean to you and for your life?
For me, financially free means I'm free of thinking about finance. That's all it means to me. I want to get to a point in life I don't even have to think about money. That's what financial freedom is to me, is being in a position where you are free of having to think about it. It's really that simple. And I had to talk to myself, and not to sound crazy, but I had to talk to myself to really get to that basic understanding that says, Rob, like, I know in a lot of cases, you might have thought before, this is me talking to myself, y'all. You might have thought before that you wanted all the money in the world and you wanted to be a billionaire. You want to be a multi-millionaire, which I'm still going to accept it when it happens, right?
Yeah.
But what I really want is just to have enough where I don't have to think about it. Like I don't even want to know the count, because I want to be in a point in life where the count doesn't even matter. Like there's certain people, like we see in Forbes and things of that nature. Forbes is telling them how much they're worth because they don't even pay attention no more. And that's one thing about wealth that I think a lot of us don't see, because we don't have the opportunity to be in the financial industry, especially the people who are at the very top of it. From all of the individuals that I know are up there that I've had a chance to talk to, shake hands here at a breakfast or whatever, however I heard them or came into contact with them, is that a lot of them are so enthralled with the missions that they are pursuing in life and the businesses that they run, that they're not thinking about how I'm going to get another billion or another million. They're thinking about, oh, how can I create something that a lot of people need? Like, what can I do to change the way people live? Like, and when you do those things, and on a very basic level, you add value to somebody's life, whether that value is convenience or that value is a better product or a better service, like you're going to receive that value back, and your wealth is going to grow, and there's going to be more money for you to have and spend, right? But I also notice that a lot of them don't think about money the way that we think about money. And I was like, oh, that's the goal. The goal is to be free of having to think about it. And
Yeah.
they don't get to that point. And it's like, and they're not still obsessed with it. Like they're like, I know I got it. Trust me, they know they got it. but
Yeah.
they're not thinking about where's the next dollar coming from. Their mentality is, okay, how am I going to pull the next idea out of my brain that is going to earn me $1? Instead of, okay, let me go figure out where to make money. It's a different mentality. And so when I had to have a real conversation with myself about where I wanted to ultimately be financially, I realized that that's what it was. Like I don't like to have to think about, all right, I can't eat out but so many times per week because I'm saving money to pay off a credit card. Or let me calculate my paycheck to see what's going to be left. Like, I don't want to think those thoughts no more, y'all. I don't know about everybody else, but I don't. And I want to be free from those thoughts because it really is an imprisonment, if you will. And I realized that thinking those thoughts was a habit that was handed down to me. And that's where gets deep, because I realized that the way I looked at money was the same way my mom looked at money, which was the same way my grandma looked at money. And it was like, oh, we're going to get really good. And because they're very good at managing it, right? And so their focus was getting good at managing what we have. Their focus wasn't creating more. And I said, okay, I got an opportunity now that I have that awareness of that cycle. I want to focus my life on how do I create more, because I'm tired of the thoughts that come with managing it. And it was just a personal thing I just got tired of. And I'm like, oh, like, let me figure this money thing out, because I'm tired of having to think about it. So let me go figure it out. And that's why it became my career. And so now it's like coming full circle. It's like now I don't have it completely figured out, right? But I know there's nothing going to stop me from my destination also, right? And now that have that personal confidence and certainty, I'm like, hey, y'all, come on, right? And that's me now, right? And so when it comes down to like what I do every day, and us having these conversations, or me being in the school and finance, it's me living out that thought every day. That's all it is. And I realized, oh, I'm on the right track, because every time I hear millionaires and billionaires talk, they're just talking about living out their thoughts. And I'm like, okay, I get how this goes now. And now I just got to get better at practicing certain habits, making sure I stick to certain things, because it's not given to you. It's not automatic. And so there's still a lot of self-work that has to be done. So, but I now am a lot more certain about the formula to creating more happiness and satisfaction for myself. I can't say that this formula will work for everyone, but I do know that there's enough commonalities that I share with many people that they will grasp onto a part of how I'm looking at this. And I can say, y'all, I done been over the mountaintop. I can tell you what happened over there. I can tell you how to get over there. And y'all just come with me, and I'm gonna take you back over there, because I just came back from over there.
Right.
And as far as just my professional experiences. And so that's I think what makes it so gratifying to me is that I don't really feel like what I do every day is work. But there are elements that do feel like work. Let me get that correct. Like, everything ain't easy, right? But I feel like what I'm working on is not, I'm not working on something to get a paycheck. I'm working on something because my curiosity is still leading the way with how can we fix this? How can we fix money in the Black community? How can we work together? How can we support each other's businesses? Like, and those curiosities as far as how, and it's like, all right, let's make something to see if it fixes the problem. And I think that's what entrepreneurship is like, oh, I see a problem or I see a void and I want to work on filling it. And even if somebody doesn't even know it's a void yet, I'm going to
Yeah.
educate you in a way that's like, oh, dang, I was missing this and I didn't even know I was missing this.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's fun to me.
Yeah, because sometimes we don't know, we don't realize that something is an issue. And the way you describe what being financially free like means to you, like when you mentioned not having to think about finance and the numbers, I relate to that as well because I remember the first time I like was, majority of my work experience is handling insurance contracts, investigating claims. So like if there's hurricanes, tornadoes, mudslides, fires, things like that, paying out on those types of claims. And when I got the contract where I made the most money, when I would get paid and pay for things and do different things, like I would forget when I was paid because, I really wasn't pressed to like look at my account, and this is just from one stream of income. So like when you said other people that are wealthier, more successful, that they're focusing on making more, having more opportunities to bring in more, not just looking at the numbers, every single day. And that felt good. And that's something that is still a goal of mine, is that I want to continue to, do what I enjoy, but also still able to earn a living where I'm not just paying bills, but I'm actually able to pay for my living expenses and invest and travel and do all these other things. And I think that's really important. It's sometimes like I don't even look in my checking account. Now, of course, I do, but sometimes I'm like, I just remember like years ago, I used to check my account every day, all day, because I'm trying to make sure I got enough money to swipe my debit card here, and it's like, I was like, I don't even have to do that anymore. Like, you'll be like, anywhere you're checking, but sometimes you hear like what your available balance is, but you got to make sure that's your real available balance because you got these pending transactions.
Those pendings.
Yeah. So I always tell my mom, I'm like, if you call or I taught her how to, check it online, but I was like, your available balance may say this, but it don't always necessarily mean that that's what you have available to spend. So just not having to worry about that type of stuff. And you can just swipe your debit card and do whatever you want and not have to worry or stress or think about, oh, is it enough money, or is my check gonna, maybe I gotta wait till the 15th or anything like that. That's just really stressful. And I think you can do more in your life if you're not worrying about things like that. So I love that. And that goes into talking about entrepreneurship and Empify, Wealth Builders Community, aka Wealth Builder Gang. So I know about it, and I know there's a lot of others that do, but for those of you who are new, for the people who are not familiar with Empify and the Wealth Builders Community, if you could tell us, what is Empify, what is the Wealth Builders Community, and share with us how people can be a part of the movement.
For sure. Well, Empify, just before anybody Googles or tries to look in the dictionary to find a definition, it's like, I never heard that word before. It is a word that was created. So Ashley Fox, good friend of mine, we went to Howard University together. The days in which we were preparing to leave corporate America, and again, this is around, I was 25, she was 24, and we were 3 years out of college, and was like, this is 3 years. It told us that we don't want another 30 here. And she said to herself, like, we've seen so much in the financial world. We gotta take this information back somehow to our communities. And we had no idea how. That was just the thought, right? And we were so fed up with work that we're like, well, in order for us to do something, we gotta have our time back. We gotta shift our direction and grab those 8 hours in the middle of the day back. And upon doing that, she had found some website. I still to this day don't know what this website is, right? I feel like it was in her dream. There wasn't no real website, but she put in the two words empower and modify and it was like a word scrambler, and it just takes the letters and like makes all these new words with the letters, and then it created Empify. And I was like, oh, and she was like, it had a ring to it. And I'm like, yeah, it does have kind of a ring to it. And at that point, she was like, oh, this makes so much sense, because the reason she put the words empower and modify in there in the first place is because with all the things that we got from the financial experiences that we had to that point, which was internships, a college degree, in a couple years, first couple years in corporate America, we realized that we had been exposed to enough information that if we just took this back to our communities, they would look completely different 10 years from now. Yeah. And that was early on in our career. So she wanted to empower people with that information, or that type of information. And she had tried change, but change didn't create any cool words. So then she said, all right, let me try modify. And she put modify in as far as just changing how we approach money, how we approach finances, how we approach that area of our life, and just making a big change for future generations. So she put modify in there, and it created the word Empify. And the very first step, a lot of people don't know this, you might not even know this, Cleo, is that once that word was created, Ashley and I, around the same time frame, and I actually went first. I was kind of like maybe 60 days ahead of her. I had opened a financial advisory office in DC. And that was going to be my thing. We were thinking, okay, we can take this information back to our community as financial advisors. So I started my office, and I started to train individuals, got people licensed in life insurance and also investments. And I had an independent 25-year-old Black-owned financial advisory office in the middle of DC, right beside Union Station on 2nd Street, right? So this is unprecedented territory. Like, people think I was this ambitious, like, or I know everything person. I was trying everything for the first, like, I didn't know, I was just putting my best foot forward every single day. I didn't know how to do this stuff. But it's so interesting how your personal brand can take form in other people's minds. Because they thought, oh, Rob, he just knows what he's doing. Like, he's just super successful. Like, he's going to be on 30 under 30 when I'm over here trying to just figure it out, right? Yeah. So at that point, when I opened my office and got those first couple people licensed, Ashley was like, I need to do that in Philly. So then Ashley did it in Philly with a couple close people to her. And we called all of me and my office and associates, and her office and associates, we were all Team Empify. So that was the very first time we had ever used it in a business space, if you will. We had a broker dealer, but our moniker was that we're Team Empify, and that's just the name of our kind of like financial advisory team. And for those who might be familiar with that world, you'll know that there's usually teams of financial advisors that work together at a lot of firms. And that's just kind of what we named ourselves. And then we got fed up with that. And we just didn't like the rules. When you're licensed with certain financial licenses, a lot of things you can't do and can't say. It's like, this is kind of impeding on what we were really trying to communicate to our community. And then we said, all right, let's leave financial services behind. And I left my office with somebody I had trained up who wanted to stick around and stay in financial services, which I wasn't mad at. And I put everything under him. And I literally walked away from the business. And so many people were like, Rob, what do you mean? I literally walked away from a book of business and said, here, you can have it. Yeah. It took, I thought about that so much, but nonetheless, I was like, it's going to come back. I don't know, but it's going to come back. Some things you just got to sit down and walk away. And that led to ultimately getting into schools, because we were thinking to ourselves, all right, we advise adults, but let's get to these people earlier. Let's start to talk to kids about money. Ashley started to get into schools, And at that same time, I had left DC and I actually got a contract to consult in the federal banking world. And so I was kind of learning the banking world from a B2B perspective, and also educating Ashley on ways that she could create partnerships with banks to teach financial literacy and to do it kind of in unison with banks. And so as far as banks sponsoring our programs in schools. And so that's how she jumped 2 feet into Empify, leaving the financial advisory life behind. And then once my contract was up, I left from the federal banking world and I jumped 2 feet in as well, to help with the school stuff. And then a month after I left the federal banking space, a month after that is when we started a Wealth Builder community. And the Wealth Builder community started in November 2018. And at that point, we had a partnership with a social media platform that we will not name. And they gave us kind of like a premium room where we had like a subscription-based model. And we decided that we were going to take that framework, that skeleton, and turn it into something that was more of like a space for conversation and nurturing and education. And we saw that it was connecting with the audience, with the world, with the marketplace, and individuals like yourself and other individuals discovered us and found us. And then we said, we got to make this bigger and better, and made an investment in building an app that now we own solely. And now all those things that we had in a partnership with the previous company, we now do completely on our own and have a lot more bells and whistles. And that's kind of been the whole trajectory of the Empify story, as far as one of the main things, which is the Wealth Builder community. But we still have programs in high schools and middle schools, and also in the juvenile detention centers as well, in the prison system. And we do a lot in between as far as with community work as well, just to make sure any and everyone has access to personal finance, education and information, as well as learning more about critical elements of entrepreneurship. And that's really how the whole story came about and how it kind of all came together. And it's like, so from my perspective, to kind of button up the answer, from my perspective, you can't make that up. Like, you can't say we're going to go. There was never a plan. We just we just did the most with every step of the way. Yeah. And it led us here. But when she left JP Morgan and I left my research firm back in 2013, we weren't thinking that, okay, in 8 years, we're going to have an app. At that point, when we quit, apps weren't even a thing, really.
No.
So there was no way that back in 2013 that what we're doing today was anywhere in our 10-year plan, let alone happen in 7 or 8 years. But it was just a matter of, we just made the most of every step along the way, and made decisions in the moment. And it just led us to where we are now.
Yes, thanks for giving us the rundown on that journey, because I think it's important for people to not only be connected with Empify and the Wealth Builders community, you and also Ashley and Fox, but I really think that it's important to know some of the backstory on your journey and how you came from, graduating from college, starting your careers in corporate America, and then transitioning out. And the fact that you all started somewhere, it's like confirmation that you don't have to have this perfect plan. Like, you just start with whatever you feel like is best for you at the time, and then you just move. But then as time goes on, you're going to get signs and confirmations, and you're going to experience things that gives you that idea that, okay, yes, this is what I should be doing. Let me keep pushing forward. Or maybe I need to pivot and do something different, just like you left that business in DC and decided to do something else, still educating and inspiring people when it comes to finances, but in a different way. And I love the app. I am a Wealth Builder community member for life. I'm not
Shout
going
out to you.
anywhere. And
Shout
I
out to you.
really think that other people should join in too. And what I really love about you and Ashley is that, there's lots of people out there talking about money, right? And all the things that revolves around money. But I like the fact that you all, I feel that you all care. Not feeling that I think, like I can feel that I can feel the generosity. I know that you guys want to see us win. We're not just another name or another number in the community, but you guys really want to see us all win as a community. That's why it's called Wealth Builders Community. Like we're all helping each other. And I like that the other people in the community are also on their own journeys, and we're all from different industries, different places, and we all can help each other. And I really believe that there's no way to transform if you don't have community or support from other people, because we can't do it by ourselves.
Right, no.
And that's something that I tried to do in the beginning when I really started getting my finances in order. I isolated myself and I really tried to figure it out on my own. But I realized I was being a disservice to myself trying to figure it out by myself. I mean, I was stressing myself out and I did not have to do that. So that's why I encourage other people out there, whoever is listening, please connect with someone else, a group of other people, and start with the Wealth Builders Community app. That is a great place to start. And I love that you all cover multiple areas of our lives, not just us succeeding in one area, but you guys are interested in elevating our lives in multiple areas. So I really appreciate that. And I want to share a financial affirmation really quick. And I just want to know how you feel and how do you feel it relates to your own personal or professional journey. So I've already shuffled cards. Okay. So I'm basically just going to pick a random one and I'll read it to you here.
Okay.
All right. I have at least 6 months worth of living expenses saved. How does that make you feel? And how does it relate to your own journey?
That's exactly what I did to quit my job. And now I know that no amount of money that you have saved can really save you. It's actually the amount of money that you've been able to turn into a cash flow. Like I now know that if I could go back, I wouldn't have been trying to save a certain amount of money to say, oh, once I save this, I can quit. I would have been more so aiming at, all right, once I've created $1,000 cash flow on the side that's consistent, then I'll quit. It's not about the money amount that you can save, because you saving money does not help you. As far as you saving money, that's a practice, that's a habit that you're building. That practice and habit doesn't exercise a muscle that you'll actually need to use once you have to create your own income. It's a completely different muscle. So when I hear that now, that's like, I did that and that's what I did to quit. But if I could go back, I would have more so been working on creating a cash flow, whether it's passive or a side hustle or something that was just consistent. And that was the trigger for leaving that world rather than a certain dollar amount saved.
Yeah, I love that. You guys listening out there, remember, it's not just about saving that number and you're done. Like you said, creating that cash flow there. So I really just want to know a few more things about you just to get to know you a little bit better. Be really quick here. So whatever comes to mind first, of course. So
one word, is this a one-word game? Is it round robin?
Doesn't have to be one word. It may be a couple of words, but most of them may be. So first is, what is your favorite season? Spring, winter, summer, fall?
I gotta go summer.
Yes, I love that. I love summer too. And out of all the places that you've traveled, what is the favorite place you've traveled to? And what's a place that you haven't been to yet that you're looking forward to visiting?
Favorite place has to be Peru.
Cool.
And place I haven't been yet that I want to visit would be Barbados.
Ooh, I haven't been to neither one of those. Those are on my list. Okay, so what is your favorite movie?
This is hard. I got a couple. The first one that came to mind though was Bad Boys 2.
Okay, good one.
But then from a younger age, man, I wore out Home Alone 2.
Oh yeah, that's a classic.
And I watched that movie, I don't know how many times. So in life, those are the top two, but I mean, and then you got I love Friday. So Friday, you can't,
Oh yeah.
yeah,
It's like
Friday's
you
one.
can't that
Yeah,
has to be a favorite in the
yeah,
vault.
yeah. So those are my top three: Bad Boys 2, Home Alone 2, and Friday.
Okay, cool. I love all three of those as well. Okay, what is your favorite food?
Wow. I'm gonna go with lasagna.
Mm. See, now I want some now. Now I'm getting hungry. Okay, what's one thing that makes you happy?
Playing basketball.
Hmm. Get a workout and be
Yeah.
happy and feeling good at the same time. I like it. And last one here. If you had $500,000 right now, what's the first three things that you would do?
Mm, I would. Ooh, this is tough. You put me on the spot too, because
First three things.
my answer is gonna
No
be
judgment.
judged too because of
No
a lot of
judgment.
reasons. So okay, I'd say the first three things I would do is I would put probably about half of it. I'll put about 250,000 into the stock market.
Mhm.
Different ways, different investments.
Yeah.
I'll leave that at that.
Okay.
And then I would I would buy a food truck.
Mm.
And I got a partner who's already one in the game, and I would get another one so we can kind of
Okay.
expand on that. And then the third thing I would do, I probably after that the next thing I'm doing is I'm looking for somewhere to travel to.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, those would be the things the things I would avoid. I wouldn't buy a house. I wouldn't. I wouldn't get a car. Like
Mm.
$500,000 really isn't that much. I'll be doing things to grow that $500,000. I wouldn't feel like that was the finish line in life.
Yeah. Like it may sound like it to some people,
Yeah, it
but
could sound like it, but man, five hundred
whoosh,
thousand can vanish
yeah, really, really
real
fast.
quick. So I would put it somewhere where I could grow it, and then we can think about how to be frivolous later.
Right. Got to take care of some business
Yeah,
first.
yeah.
I love that. All right. So, last question here. I know a lot of times we're asked, what advice would we give to our younger selves?
Mm.
But I want to know, what advice would you tell yourself right here in this moment? This could be financial advice or just life advice in general. What would you tell yourself right now?
Love yourself even harder.
Mm, I love that. Self-love it's a requirement. I think it really controls the actions that we really take every day towards the things we really want to do. So I love that. Love yourself. And I really enjoyed this conversation with you, Rob. I know it went by really, really
It
fast, but
did.
you gave a lot of good information from sharing your story, giving us the information on the Wealth Builders community and Empify. So for, the people out there, if you could just let us know how we can connect with you and how we can support you and also support the Wealth Builders community movement and how people can join too.
Yeah. So, I think the easiest way to get in contact or get connected with us is through Instagram. We're on Instagram at Wealth Builders Community, no underscores, straight through Wealth Builders Community. And on that page, we post a lot of general educational, posts. But we also have links in the bio that will take you to our landing page for our app, give you some background. You'll see some testimonials, things that you can learn, courses that are available, just some of the networking opportunities, and just kind of learn a lot more about the community, because there's so many things kind of wrapped in one, where a lot of individuals may think, oh, this is just a finance thing. It's way more than just finance. And it's really just about life and how we can kind of just get better at life, which will help us in our finances. And so on Instagram is the best way to find us and just to get more information. But the website, our website is empify.com. You can go to empify.com/WB community, and it will take you to the same landing page that you can get to through our Instagram account. But that's the best way to find out more about the community, how it works, how you can join, and just what to expect. Then as far as myself, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at the Rob Boyd. There's a lot of Rob Boyds out there, I learned when I Googled. So I'm like, I am the Rob Boyd.
Right.
That's where I got that name from, y'all. So, and you can find me on Instagram and Twitter that way, and also on LinkedIn, just as Rob Boyd, and I also have a Facebook page, Rob Boyd, as well. So it's pretty consistent across the board. And you can connect with me. I respond to DMs and I respond to emails. You might have to give me a couple of days, but I'll respond to your email. And those are the best ways to get connected with me and the community.
Yes, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time and generosity today. And I know this is the end of the show, you guys, but before I go, I just want to encourage you to just take it one day at a time, take it one step at a time. And of course, reach out to the Rob Boyd on social media, and also check out the Wealth Builders community page on social media, and take a look at the website and take the necessary steps to join in on this movement, because you don't want to miss out. Like I said, I'm a member for life. So
you do not want to miss out.
I'm not going anywhere. So just remember, as you navigate through your financial journey, don't wonder what if, take a risk, and have an amazing week.
You can be financially free with Cleo.